All right, well, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our presenters. We have RMA's David Zanoni on the line and QBE NAU's Jay Johnson on the line. Please take it away.
Afternoon, everybody. Glad you all could make our second call this afternoon. And how we're going to kind of blues through this real quick here. I'll try and take the screen sharing a little slow here as I do kind of try and talk a little fast to zoom a little quick, so I'm going to try and slow down here for you all this afternoon. And how we're going to do it is we're just going to do a quick walkthrough of current functionality in NAU's EasyWriter Pro, along with some import functionality that we are releasing tonight for importing ACRSI FSA data, and just give you guys a quick peek into what that's going to look like. And then we'll jump into questions that you can ask David or myself, or hopefully we have some other NAU personnel on the phone that might be able to answer any questions that I might not be able to get for you all too. So raise your hands and hope will shoot me anything as you guys go as we're going through. But let's just dive in and go into kind of what we currently have in EasyWriter Pro for the expansion. And just real quick, as we talk the expansion or pilot, it includes 9 multi-parallel crops, as you can kind of see on the right screen. And so as we're talking down the road, it's these 9 crops that we're talking that when you enter them into EasyWriter Pro, these are the 9 we're talking about sending files to or getting data from FSA. Along with the 4 non-MPCI crops over there, the alfalfa, CRP, fallow, and grass, that's what we'll reference as the FSA pilot crops too. So just kind of as we know, and then this pilot and expansion, as we're talking about, is all the 48 continuous states. I don't think it's Hawaii and Alaska, is it, David? And that's fine. So we can touch base on that later. So we'll continue on. I hope and Dave are syncing up there. And so for the spring overview of what we're trying to do is allow farmers to report acres to one agency and then send that shared information to the other agency for their MPCI and non-MPCI crops. QBE NAU as a stance feels that the agent is best equipped to handle this on the front end, and so we're really pushing for the farmers to come to you guys first, submit the timely acreage reports, get them keyed, and then we'll push that to FSA. And they still have to go to FSA to certify their acres. If they go to FSA first, they still have to come to the agent and sign an acreage report as well. So that has not changed. And so until the rules for MPCI change, we still have to have that signed acreage report. And so once that's there, we get the data from the clearinghouse, we send it to the clearinghouse, and then it arrives for us or FSA to use as they're certifying. And so the question is, well, how can we get that information? A couple releases ago for EasyWriter Pro, we released a non-insured acreage report that prints for all acreage reports out there, map-based, non-map-based. And then you can get that back, and then we can go into EasyWriter Pro to our ACRSI non-MPCI acreage entry screen. And within the MPCI editor, you can click on the little toolbar there for ACRSI. If you use our Easy Mapping tool set, there's a little command button down there that pops it up, or if you choose to use Quick FTF, you can hit it there. So that'll all take you to the same screen. And this is just a screenshot of it, where you would then go in and key in the county, the farm, tract, field, what commodity, intended use, irrigation practice, organic, whether it's, I forget the exact FSA terms for those, prevented planting, any of the other stuff. You'd key that information, and then once the policy is committed in EasyWriter Pro, we would then send that information to RMA's clearinghouse for FSA to use on their side. And then on the back end, I don't have screenshots of it, but they are in the user manual you'll have access to later. We do send a QBE NAU version of the 578 that prints out for them to use when you do choose to key in the non-MPCI ACRSI crops. So The new functionality, we'll kind of zoom through this and get to our questions here shortly. This is what's coming out in tonight's release for us. And this is the data that we are getting from FSA. So when the farmer goes and certifies, this is the data for those 9 crops, NPCI crops, that we're going to use to certify, or not certify, to allow you to import into our system. To start off with, in the NPCI inbox report, or in the inbox reports for NPCI policies, there is a new report, ACRSI import listing. It's going to pop up with our traditional filter where you can go down, either view all the insureds that you have access to that have a file available, or you can filter it down to a specific agency you work with or a specific policy number. And then whether you have imported or not imported them. So you can filter it down. Then it's just going to show you a standard grid listing of what's available. You can double click on it, or if you know a policy, just go in and key it, the policy number, and then it's going to bring you into our policy editor. And then from there, you can go to the ACRSI toolbar menu and click the policy import drop down on it. And what that will do will then bring in the policy data that we have from FSA into a policy import screen here for ACRSI. In our example here, we've just got 2 rows. You can see that they've gone and certified 1 corn and 1 bean with FSA. And so what we can do is now take this and associate this to any unit on the policy for us. And to do that, you can double click on the little unit there, hit that little blue triangle, and then it's going to pop up a unit selection window, which you can see is from our quick FTF. We try to reuse as much as we can in our systems. And this, it's going to be filtered by units location. And so what our system does, I'm going to scroll back here, and it takes the farm track field and looks at all the geodata we have, the CLUs, and finds out what legals are already associated to units in our system that match that farm track field. And then it's going to go and list those by which ones that it thinks, hey, here's ones that these could be associated to. You will notice we don't filter on crop. We know there's instances where it could be keyed wrong or something where it might not match all correct. And so we're just going to list every crop we have in our system that matches that, and there are units that match it too. So here for corn, we can select corn. You click OK. It's going to go back, and it would then filter in the, it would input the unit there for you. And then when you're done and you want to import, you can either import into our quick FTF screen or the map entry screen. And so for this example, we're just showing what it looks like at quick FTF. We've imported these units in with everything there. If there was any missing information, quick FTF would require you to key it before you could save it. So you just go in, double check. If there were other units on the policy that we did not have ACRSI information for, so one of the 9 crops that aren't there, say sugar beets, tobacco, or something, you could then go in and key all the rest of your information there, and then hit save or save and exit, and then that data is now saved to the policy. If you chose to do a map entry, this is kind of a cool feature that based on the farm track field, it can find a CLU and then tie that to something that we can map for you automatically there. And so you can see here that its source is ACRSI. If it came from quick FTF, we show quick FTF here. And then it shows you what field number we were able to associate it to. If we were not able to associate it to a field, it would show not listed. You'd be able to do that or custom map that too if you needed to. And then when you were done here, you do save and close or save and then exit at a later point in time. And so that is kind of how you import and associate it to a unit. And then when you're all done, you can just commit the policy and that will save everything. And then once the policy is committed, and this is the key to this whole process for us, after acres are entered is then when we would send, that's when we would send a file to the RMA clearinghouse with all of our ACRSI expansion policy crops, whether you've keyed in non-MPCI or have MPCI policy or MPCI crops. That is then we would then send that to the RMA clearinghouse, and then they would process it and then to push it to FSA once they've processed that file. And that right there, guys, is the kind of the whole overview of the ACRSI process. It's not very time-consuming to show you here, so we're going to kind of open it up on questions and comments that you guys might have, whether it's on the process we talked about or ACRSI as a whole.
Okay, we're going to start off with a note question that came through from Don. They are asking, without the client's without the client's 578, how do we know if there are any non-insured acres such as grass strips or waterways?
That's the $5,000 question, or $50,000, I forget the game shows here. If they don't provide it to you, there's really no way that we can report it. And I know David's probably going to jump in here a little bit and expand on this answer. Are you on, David?
Yeah, I am on.
All right. I don't know if you wanted to expand from this morning on what you said on that one on participation.
So, when you get the data, I mean, traditionally, yes, having the full 578 does give you a more complete picture of all land, even the non-insured stuff, which is helpful. But, I mean, it's no different than if certain land isn't captured by the 578, if you have multiple farms and you only have one of them, in that case. I mean, at the end of the day, the producer has a responsibility to certify all the acreage that they're supposed to at FSA for their programs and for crop insurance for their policy provisions. So that's always going to stand out there. I think that sharing the data back and forth is going to be effective in helping identify that, because with ACRSI, even if they start with the crop insurance side and you fill something out and then it goes to FSA, since the participant is still going to the county office to certify there, if they add more acreage, in theory, that data will come back to the AIP, so you'll see that. Obviously, that's not ideal, constantly adding on both sides and have to redo something, but you'd be able to see that at some stage in the process regardless. So you just get it electronically and you get it through the digital services here as opposed to a piece of paper. Hopefully that kind of helps answer that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. Our next question is from Adam. Adam, I'm going to turn on or take you off of mute so you can feel free to speak when you're ready.
Thanks, Hope. Yeah, do we have any idea the turnaround time on when this stuff gets reported and when it can get, if they come into the agent puts it in, we send it to the clearinghouse, when does FSA get it, and vice versa? If FSA, they go in and certify there and the agent tries to pull it, is it a couple days? Because like last year with SIMS data, it was 2 to 3 weeks. So, yeah, any time frame on any of that transmissions?
Yeah, I'll handle the from keying in from the AIP to RMA, and then David can handle the middle part to FSA here in our response. So you as an agent, as you come in and you key the data, once you commit that in Easy Rider Pro, that then goes into a queue, kind of like a wait line at the grocery store, at the amusement park for the ride. And then in what order you're in, we go first in, first out. And so as you go in the peak times, we're seeing it takes about half hour, maybe just a hair longer today, because we've really had some people going today, for us to build the file after you save it and then send it to RMA. And so you key later in the afternoons or early in the mornings. Sometimes it's dang near instantaneous that we're shooting that file out there. So we're probably saying within a half an hour plus or minus a little bit based on how many people are keying acres in. And then once we send it to RMA, now I'll let David kind of take over on what happens on their end.
So our clearinghouse itself is pretty lightweight, so it can actually, once it receives a file from a company or FSA, it can actually process that and transit it to the appropriate locations in a matter of just a few minutes. We're seeing many of the times it only takes literally about 1 minute for us to process that file in the clearinghouse. Peak time is probably more 5 minutes or in that range, but again, we're talking minutes here, not days, weeks, or months like some of the other data has. From the FSA perspective, when they submit data in, it takes them they basically send a data every 15 minutes, so they'll take any changes of the last 15 minutes and send it. So if something happens at FSA county office and they certify their acreage over there, within 15 minutes it will be sent to the clearinghouse, and within a few minutes we'll send that to the appropriate AIPs to page for the agents. Going the other direction again, if it's keyed originally at the AIP, again, just after a few minutes processing the clearinghouse, it'll be ready within just a few minutes for the county office to receive that data itself. So again, the whole process front to back, it does vary a little bit around peak times, but it is a matter of a few minutes. Top end, we're talking an hour would be rare.
Yeah, and then once we get that data back from RMA that's coming from the FSA side, we've got a service that I think goes out and looks about every 3 minutes and then grabs that data and pulls it in, and it takes us less than about 2 minutes to basically ingest that data and associate it to a policy that you're going to see on the inbox report to import. So, you know, like David said, overall, an hour at most would take to get it from one side to the other. Kind of considering this is still a pilot and fairly new technology that we're using on both sides, fairly quick from, you know, as you talk about SIMs and other data that can take weeks to get. So this is a fairly fast process that, you know, as it grows, you know, from what I'm seeing, we're going to get better at getting the data to you guys quicker and faster.
Excellent. Adam, did that answer your question?
Yep, thanks.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, our next question is coming in via a note. They are wondering if a farmer has certified at FSA already but needs to make changes, can we make those changes through this process?
You want to take that one, David?
Yeah, I'll start, and you can maybe explain just technologically how you guys implement it.
All right.
From a general business process is absolutely. I mean, we talked about this quite a bit on the morning session as well here, but the general principle here that we want to make abundantly clear is we want the data to be correct for crop insurance. So if you're getting data from FSA that you do not believe is correct, we absolutely want you to change it to be correct. Now, certainly we'd like to have that reconciled. We'd like to have both sides match if they, you know, if to get both sides right. But if you cannot reconcile that, if what you believe is correct and is not the same as FSA, we want you to change it to what you believe is correct, or what the producer is certifying is correct, right? When that happens, what we'd like to see is the data comes from FSA, you make the necessary corrections you believe are necessary, and that data will be sent back to FSA so they can see it and they can make a decision whether or not maybe they did make a mistake, or sometimes it's still going to be a dispute. I mean, that's going to be a process over the long run that we're going to have to work out and make it so we can reconcile these cases. But right now we're focused on just making sure that when we have this data at both sides, we're making sure both sides see the same information on what the other side is producing so that we can start talking the same language. SIMS has done that a little bit in the past, but not nearly as much as we'd like, which is partially where ACRSI is starting to go. So Jay, do you want to add how NAU does that exactly?
Yeah, and so if you go in and then take the acres from 100 to 110 or whatever, you know, we will then send that adjusted acreage information to FSA through the same existing ACRSI process through our base clearinghouse. So then they'll get notified that, hey, there's new acreage coming. But I would still think that the farmer, we had this morning, that they probably still have to, do they have to go recertify at FSA is the question.
If it's wrong, then yeah, right? So
yeah.
That's the big thing. The producer still has a ownership of their certified acreage report. If they're trying to certify two different things at their agent and at FSA, then they have a compliance issue themselves. We want them to certify the same thing. Now, there's sometimes there's going to be program rules that force it to be different, and we acknowledge that. But if there's a straight-up mistake made by FSA that the AIP notices and fixes and sends it back, the producer would need to go back to the FSA office and make that conforming correction and recertify.
Yeah, and that data should be sitting there for the FSA. So they'll really probably already know this guy's coming back because they're going to get that updated acreage to them. So when you do have situations like that, just remind the insured, hey, you still need to go back to the FSA and recertify this change. Did that answer the question?
I will double check to make sure that. Okay, the next question that I have is from John. It states, and I did get a yes, that it did answer your question, so thank you. Perfect, thank you. All right, the next question is from John. We have downloaded some accuracy information from FSA, and it was 80% wrong. Until RMA and FSA talk in the same data language, example using CLU, units, or track, how does anybody expect this to go smooth? It seems like we are just going to frustrate the farmer, insurance agents, and FSA employees.
So that's a fair point that I think is kind of holding back a lot of the enthusiasm for this. And I think that's something that is going to evolve over time as we kind of culturally learn from sharing this data. So one of the things that the ACRSI project has done is it has produced a true data standard. So when FSA sends data or when the AIP submits data to this clearinghouse, it's in the exact same format. Now, there's still some business process challenges there, and I think you mentioned a couple of them, CLU versus units versus tracks, where it's hard to align. Those business program issues, I mean, haven't really changed because of ACRSI. I mean, we have that today with just traditional reporting, with, field level reporting, trying to report by CLU. And I think that part of this is going to, by sharing information, it should help us understand more of where it can and can't work. One of the things that we've always stressed is when we see data that's quote-unquote wrong, we want to make sure that it may just be different for program reasons. And we need to be able to learn how to translate that effectively to match the crop insurance program for our purposes. There's potential to frustrate the farmer and agents and the employees, absolutely, and that's why we kind of would stress is, don't bite off more than you can chew with this process, right? If it's not working, I think that the phrase I've used is don't go down with the ship with this. We want you guys to try it. We want you guys to experiment with it, to get familiar with it. But at its core, you need to make sure and get feedback because we're seeing this in the long term. We're playing the long game here, and we need to try it where we can, learn what does and doesn't work, get that feedback, and evolve. There will be many iterations of this over time. So when we see these cases of it being wrong, just give us some examples. Show us this. Route it through Jay, and he'll send it to RMA, to me, and we can use that to learn from on how we need to, as you say, speak the same language.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. All right, my next question is from another David. The question is, will we still be able to put the SOI on a deferred endorsement before we commit the acreage report so we can double check the information?
I think that's current functionality right now, right, Hope?
I believe so. I would need to double check, but I believe so.
Yeah, and we are not, as far as, that's not going to change, so you should be able to do that. But yeah, we will double check on that one.
Perfect. And David Patzer, the one who's asking the question, I did unmute you as well if you wanted to. Did you have any follow-up questions on that, David? I'm going to take that as a no, but if you do, feel free just to email me back. Wonderful. Let's see. Our next question is from Tom Block, and he has mentioned that that he has sent in through, I'm guessing, our accuracy through in EasyWriter Pro on the 24th of May, and FSA still does not have the information yet.
Just shoot us the policy number on that one. Let us track that one through. We do have a few set of policies where we had some transmission issues, and we're just kind of working the kinks out on our side to get 100% acceptance of our files going. and that might be one of those where we still have an error we're working through correcting right now. And so, yeah, and that's just, not just for Tom, but for anybody if you think it should be there and it's not, shoot your underwriter a email of, hey, policy XYZ, shoot it to me, and then they'll shoot it to me, and we'll track it down and get your response on what's going on.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Tom, if you have a follow-up on that too, please just let me know. The next question, I actually have a note from Kathy, but she did raise her hand as well, so I'm going to just open her up here and take her off of mute so she can actually ask both of her questions. Let me unmute her. Okay, Kathy Fowler, if you wouldn't mind just asking your questions.
Oh, let's see, what was it? Oh, I know. If we transmit the data and it goes to the clearinghouse to FSA, and maybe we had a data entry error, FSA corrects it, or is there some way that we're notified, or do we have to just periodically go back and check?
We don't have an auto notification feature set right now on this process. That was brought up this morning. It is in an enhancement list we're looking at. The best way is, policy XYZ, if you knew it was a data entry error and you know it's coming back, would be to look at that report. And if you know, say they went in at 1 o'clock today to make the change, best would be to check about 2:30, 3 o'clock and say, hey, do I have this data available to come in and import for me?
I guess my real thought was, what if something changed and I wasn't aware? Maybe they planted another field after for some, there could be a lot of different reasons. Oh,
yeah, thousands of different reasons. And that's where that inbox report, and that we just, if an auto notification feature is kind of what you all want, let us know and we can work on something. Can't say, what it'd be right now. We got to work on our devs and kind of see, but we do other stuff like that where once a week, boom, here's a listing of stuff that changed. That might be something we could look at. I know I'm just kind of throwing stuff out and people are probably cringing right now from NAU. But I mean, is that something like what you're looking for in that situation?
Sure, that would be sufficient.
All right, we will add that to our list here and see what we can do.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kathy. Kathy, did you have any other questions?
No, I'm good for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, I see it. Thank you. I will look at it.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Jay. All right. I have a question from Stacy, and hopefully I'll be able to word this one correctly. And it's an accuracy question. FSA seems to code them as follow. Oh, you know what? I'm not at the top of the message. Excuse me. Okay. For prevented planting, if we have old water acres, we normally do not report those for MPCI purposes. Now through ACRSI, I'm wondering if we know it's old water, then how should we code these for ACRSI? FSA seems to code them as follow. I haven't keyed any acreage reports yet. Is there any more information that we would need for these acres or how to key them?
I would say just off the cuff, and correct me here, David, is you would not change how you report them today. It's for the MPCI stuff. You would just key it as you normally would, and because that's how you're keying it on the crop insurance side, and this is one of those discrepancies that if FSA does it differently, that's where the insured, when they go in and certify, they're going to have to make their adjustments at that point.
This is crazy.
Yes, it is.
All right. Stacey, if you have any follow-ups to that, please feel free just to get back to me. The next question that I have is from, hold on one second here, let me just move this, from Gerald. And he is wondering, if a grower plants a portion of a field, will the handwritten notes on the map reporting be uploaded to FSA?
That was a great response. Can you hear me here?
Yep, now I can hear you.
Okay. No, on that one, we do not exchange any documents with FSA through this process. It's strictly data. So if you do have a handwritten note or 578, that would be where you store your agency documents if you send them in with us, or if you send them, or if you store them at your agency itself. And so that's where it would be. And at David, I don't think there's any current thing about any electronic document exchange.
It's currently not a capability. It's been pitched before, but I don't know if it would ever happen, or if even if it did, when that would be.
Okay, thank you. Gerald, if you do have any follow-up questions, please just let me know as well. The next question that we have from Stephanie is, will SIMS be going away?
You on that one, David?
Sure, I'll answer that. So, SIMS as a system is constantly being upgraded. I'm not quite sure how NAU has integrated SIMS and the SIMS data into their software, so if Jay wants to add anything onto that, but our basic processes we have with SIMS right now aren't scheduled to retire anytime soon. I do think that some of the pieces of that probably will become obsolete at some point based on what we can do with ACRSI, but we aren't there yet, so we'd be talking several years from now at the earliest for any significant changes there from the government side.
And as far as on QBE's NAU's Easy Writer Pro, tonight, I think in tonight's release as well, Quick FTF, you're going to be able to import off your SIMS data too. And so we're just like we are ACRSI, and so in a lot of situations we're leveraging that instead of policyholder tracking for current stuff, just for acreage reporting and all that. So we're using SIMS. I know it's been invaluable on some loss adjustments in our system. We've got a 578 that sits off that data. So, for us, SIMS is a valuable tool as well. So if it does go away, we'll make sure that whatever replaces SIMS has that same information readily available.
Thank you. All right, our next question is from Siobhan. We have been looking at submitting the data from our side, but in conversation with FSA, if the data does not match their CLU acres, then they will change our data to match their CLUs and then submit back to us that this data was changed. With this in mind, this does not seem like a two-way process, especially when we are looking at submitting precision ag data. The other option from FSA was to tell us that they can change the acres, but they will reduce the producer's base acres, thus reducing potential payments with the new Farm Bill process. How do we handle this resistance?
So I can take that a little bit. I think it's kind of a known issue on how all that kind of squares with FSA. FSA is actually going to do some more education and training for their offices on what they can and can't do. One thing to keep in mind is they do need to, at FSA, account for all the acreage on the farm. And so if you've got precision ag data that suggests the acreage planted is less than the CLU acreage, they've got to reconcile that in some way. Now, one way they can do it is they can simply, let's say you have the example, actually we had an example this morning, 21-acre field, but 20 is planted corn, and the other 1 acre is fallow grass, something else, right? It's a buffer in there somewhere. What FSA can do is they can report the 20 acres of corn and then 1 acre of fallow, and that way you're still matching the precision ag at the crop insurance, 20 planted acres, with FSA, 20 planted acres, but they're getting all 21 acres of land reported. Now, sometimes that becomes a bit of a challenge for some counties just cut corners, but a lot of counties do that very naturally. Part of this is cultural. You've got thousands of different agents, a couple thousand county offices, and a bunch of, 7,000 county office employees. There's going to be a little inconsistency here and there. I think communication and training with this new process, it's going to take some time to really get people to buy into how we can make this data reconcile. The goal of ACRSI has always been a producer-first type of project, and so the last thing we want to do is add burden to them or put them in a tough spot where they could lose program payments. So again, even when this process isn't quite working seamlessly, when you can't agree on the acreage, that's not the end of the world yet. As long as the crop insurance acreage report is correct and FSA does what they need to do, the producer will at least be no worse off than they were. But I think even with that, we'll have plenty of situations where it can work fairly seamlessly, where the producer is truly gaining by not having to repeat the reporting.
Okay, our next question that we have is, if a customer has filled out an acreage report with the crop insurance agent and then goes to FSA and ends up changing acres at the FSA office, do we need a revised acreage report form from the farmer?
Again, I'll just kind of stress from the RMA policy procedure standpoint is we want the correct acreage reported. So if the acreage is wrong and it needs to be corrected, then correct it. We don't want you to match FSA for the sake of matching, but we do want the correct numbers, ideally at both places. So, you do make revisions if there's truly an error in it that needs to be rectified.
Perfect. Thank you, David. All right, our next question from Tom. What do you do when all the CRP is in another name, for example, 100% landowner's name?
I think in that situation, I don't think we would report it through our system to FSA because it is not his land. Am I right on that one, David?
In theory, you could, but yeah, if it's not your insured, I wouldn't even deal with it. I would just not report it.
Because how we would send the file to FSA would show our insured as the primary shareholder of that land. So, and then if that land's not in any program or anything, it might have some downstream effects. So, yeah, on those situations, it would be best to just not report that.
Okay, perfect. And Tom did state that that is the case and they don't have the landowner.
So,
thank you. All right, our next question from Corey is asking, obviously there will not be a plant date for fallow acres. Is there something different that we need to put in for a plant date instead of leaving it blank on fallow?
On those, we had a similar question this morning. If you kind of know what would have been the final plant date on that, I know in our system for that we are requiring a plant date. We are going to loosen up some of those edits on that, where on certain crops we're just going to, hey, there's no plant date there, but we will accept the records. So for now, just key something in to the best of your ability, and then we'll get that corrected.
Okay, perfect. And Jay, when you say we'll get that corrected, meaning we'll be changing something in our system, or?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. The next question is from Lindsay. How do you know that the data is available for us to see?
Let me slide something out of the way here, and that is new report coming in the inbox tonight. Under MPCI reports, you're going to see the ACRSI import listing, and that's going to show any and everybody who has data available who is your insured. So, and if you're not seeing someone who says they've certified, again, send your underwriter an email, and then we can work it through the chain and kind of see what happened. And so if you leave this up, and if you go into this report at 8 in the morning, and you look at it at 2 in the afternoon and be like, well, hey, it hasn't changed. You can right-click, hit refresh, and then it'll give you a new listing. So,
Perfect.
yeah, this is the report.
I'm sorry. So you said that will be available in tonight's release, correct?
Yeah, that's tonight's release.
Excellent.
So imagine if you will.
Wonderful. Perfect. Lindsay, if you have any further questions, please just let me know. Believe it or not, we have lots of questions this morning. Right now we are actually at no questions. If anybody has any further questions, please feel free just to raise your hand or send me a note. We'll give just a couple more minutes here just to make sure we're not going to miss any. Oh, I'm getting some here. Okay, give me just one moment here. I just want to find this individual and unmute them. Okay, I hope I'm going to pronounce this correctly, but I have Lana Christy Halverson, and I'm unmuting you now, so please proceed with your question. Oh, I think maybe you guys might still be on mute on your phone.
Okay. If our producer comes in and reports on July 14th, okay, our final date is July 15th. I believe FSA is July 15th also. Will they will still need to be into the FSA to sign their paperwork by the 15th also, correct?
That is my understanding.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and then also there's all these lists of crops. So if our producer has sunflowers, peas, lentils, and canola, they are still going to need to take that information to the FSA. Because will that information transfer?
No, we are just those 4 non-MPCI crops and those 9 MPCI crops. If you are any of those you listed, sugar beets or anything, they still have to show up at that FSA office regardless and certify.
That's all they're okay.
Yeah, and we will not send any ACRSI information on those crops to FSA.
Okay. Thank you.
So and that's the one thing we want to stress is why it's still so important for that insured to go to both spots, because not everything is in the pilot.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. All right, our next question, and Kathy, I hope this isn't just from before, so please just let me know if you just had this one from before. But I have Kathy on the line again. Kathy, you're unmuted, and you can proceed.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was typing, but not quite fast enough. I've been to several of these programs over the last couple of years, and I understand very clearly now that we only transmit data, but I'm in an area where we deal with a lot of first crop, second crop, and a lot of times my second crop is planted on a portion of the first crop, or maybe in a portion of the field that did not have a previous crop. So it's important a lot of times for me to get a map from FSA, especially if the field is broke down 1A, 1B, 1C, so I can clarify if all of my acreage is insurable or only part of that. Will there be an official record keeper of a map, whether it be at FSA or with me, of where the crop is actually planted?
So from the USDA's perspective there is, what ACRSI doesn't do is set some official record of this side's correct and this side's wrong, right? There will be still a map filed with FSA for as part of their acreage reporting process, regardless, whether they start with the county office or whether they start with their agent. So that'll still be created. That doesn't mean that mapping technologies that the AAPs develop can't be still used by the agent as they always have been, or that they can't be used by the producer to aid in filling out their map over at the county office if they start with their agent. So there is no official repository of this is the correct official version of it, other than the version that the agent AAP has and the version the county office has for their own program purposes. We are trying to expand it over time to include more kind of digitizing these maps so they could be transferred back and forth, but I think there's still some development there and some learning there to find an efficient way. And some of these things, as you mentioned, that your area, your region might have some challenges that are just different from, the very, homogeneous corn and beans only, corn belt type of stuff. This might not work seamlessly in all areas on the first go-around, right? There might be only a subset of producers that this is going to be smooth with initially, that it'll have to kind of grow into those other more advanced cases. And that's kind of where I said kind of earlier is, to the extent we can provide specific examples and feedback on these type of situations that, hey, this producer really can't fit in this paradigm, when we can see that, that helps us kind of solution out of enhancements down the road. So it's kind of a roundabout answer there, but did that answer your question?
Yes, that's helpful. As far as just make sure that it's on the drawing board. And just another FYI, we have a large book of skip row cotton business that I doubt is, it could be challenging at first, but just make sure that at some point in time that gets addressed also.
Understood. And I think we do have some skip row as a tag in there that can be done, but I do understand that there are some challenges around that in program rules. So it does, skip row cotton is a challenge for the agency in general.
Sure. I understand, and no problem. If there's anything that we can help with input, we'd be glad to. Thank you.
Excellent, Kathy. Thank you so much. All right, our next question is coming in. So if the farmer certifies at FSA and it imports, do I still need a signed acreage report? If yes, how does ACRSI make it easier on the farmer?
Yes, you still need a signed acreage report. It doesn't necessarily make it easy on a farmer when you look at the overall scope, but it's current policy that they still need to certify at both spots and have a signed acreage report. What it can do is speed up the keying of acres on your end to turn that around for them quicker. So if you do have ACRSI that is certified, you can import that in and then commit the policy and then do a pre-printed acreage report as well, and then they can sign that.
And so maybe let me add a little bit there is it's going to vary a lot on how the agents currently conduct business. If an agent's the type that already just has the producer give them a 578 and you take that and you do all this keying on your end and they just show up to sign the paper at the end of the day, then the producer probably doesn't change their experience that much, but it ought to, this process ought to make the agent's life easier because the digital data is there that just is imported in versus keying it. For some agents that don't work off the 578 as religiously, this process really can help the producer because now you have that available to them. Or if the producer starts with the agent, where they can save time now is when they're at the county office, some of that's pre-populated so they don't have to re-key in or re-explain their operation to their county office tech. So it depends on how the current agent and the current county office operates for that particular producer on where some of the savings is, if that helps kind of clarify.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, our next question is from Kristen. If we have already keyed in the customer's data and then an import comes in for the same customer, what should we do with it?
If nothing's changed, you don't have to do anything. That's an example of we key, first in, so if they came to the agent first and keyed it in, then it's going to go to FSA, and then when FSA is done, they're going to then ship back what they have to us. So it's kind of like two ships passing in the night. I would say hopefully on 99% of those, there's nothing we have to do.
All right, and Jay, just for devil's advocate purposes, if the data is different?
Then you go with what is for crop insurance purposes, kind of like what David was alluding to earlier. If it's 20 acres is what we reported for corn, and FSA has 21, you know, it's what they reported and what they planted is what crop insurance wants. That's those different reporting requirements between the two programs. So, and that's, you know, really what we need to abide by is what did they plant for crop insurance purposes, and that's what we need in our system.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jay. All right, our next question is from Stephanie. Does established alfalfa planted in 2014 need to be reported on an accuracy report or just newly planted acres?
Well, that's a new one. Alfalfa, David, that's not one of the rollover crops, is it, for our FSA right now?
So that one I do not believe is part of their continuous certification, although I could be wrong on that. But regardless, you know, that's something that can be reported, even if it's old, as opposed to new. But I'm trying to think through on how FSA would process that. But in general, that's not going to be a deal breaker one way or another, whether it's included or not. It would still, FSA would still be able to figure it out, regardless of what isn't included. But it could be reported if you went through the effort and to do it. I'd have to check, though, on the continuous certification if they would roll over their acres themselves.
Okay, thank you so much. The next question is from Gerald. Gerald is asking, does FSA identify summer fallow versus continuous crop for non-irrigated winter wheat? Is it a separate practice?
So I don't believe that they traditionally have kind of classified wheat like that. Excuse me. But those classifications are present in the data standard for ACRSI, so they have modified their system where they can capture that. That said, a lot of the county office techs aren't going to be particularly familiar with it, and so that might not be consistently reported accurately. And so that's something that probably just the agents need to kind of watch out for if they know that they've got a producer that's going to be in that situation, to check and make sure that that data is correct when it comes over from FSA. But that should be no different than it is now, where I don't believe that type of information would be on a 578 today, where the agent kind of has to know that there's an additional piece of information involved there.
Perfect. Thank you, David. All right, the next question is if using accuracy, will this allow adjusters to access the information faster, or will they still be getting 578s from FSA to work claims?
They're probably still going to get the 578s from FSA. I know we generate some for our adjusters off the SIMS data. They will have access to this data to review the claims as well. It's kind of new information that we're looking to see how it's going into our entire system and how it works. And so it's a new tool that they're going to be able to have at claims reporting time to work with, yes, for these 9 crops. So, and that's the key is, you know, if you got sugar beets, you know, and they have corn and beans, they're only going to get it for those 2 crops, and sugar beets, you know, that's why they're still going to go grab the 578s.
Thank you, Jay. I am going to jump to Stephanie's question here because it's right along the same lines, and I think you've already answered it. But currently, adjusters verify acres with the 578s when working the claim. Will they no longer be using these?
Yeah, and it's just to make sure that they've got everything.
Perfect. So, Jay, you're saying they'll still use the 578s just as they did before?
As a point of reference.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, our next question is from Melanie, wondering where we will find the accuracy acreage import inbox report after we log into EasyWriter Pro.
That's a great question because as I looked at my presentation this morning, I'm like, oh, I don't have the screenshot on the inbox. Under the MPCI policies inbox report, and it's in the user manual. I don't have that document up yet. That you would be in there and you can see it. So as we're talking here, I'm trying to bring up a document and share that one. And so you just go in there and there we go. If you give me about a few more seconds, I can move some stuff around here. App sharing, and you guys are going to see something flipping on your screen here. I have got to come back and go here. So you should now see a Word document. Oh, and I didn't put a screenshot of it there either. Huh. Nice. Sorry. Yeah, it'd be in the new inbox report under the MPCI policies. And those of you familiar, you just go in and select, and then you'll see it. I will add a screenshot in our documentation here to reference it as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jay. All right, again, we are out of questions. If anybody has anything further, please feel free to raise your hand by using the upper left corner raise hand icon, or feel free to send me a note. We'll give just a couple, we'll give maybe a minute or so here for any further questions.
Hello, Ho. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. This is Andrew Abner, and I had a question. How long is the pilot program anticipated going on?
David, you want to answer that one on the dates?
Sure. So our current plan is the clearinghouse and this data transfer is going to continue indefinitely. We're not going to turn it off ever. So now, obviously, if you send a acreage report, a corn acreage report, after the acreage reporting date, it's probably of limited value. But we want to kind of keep the data sharing constantly there. So anytime there's new data, at least it's, when you change something, at least it's there for the other side if they can possibly use it. So, you know, the terminology of pilot versus, you know, final, whatever, I'm not quite sure on the semantics of it all, but at the end of the day, we're constantly trying to improve. So whether it's adding new crops, adding new features, new data standards, new policies and procedures, our hope is that the continuous improvement that never really stops. So it's really, it scales as fast as the user base really adopts it. Does that answer the question?
Well, I guess I need to ask it a different way. When will the farmer really just go to FSA or the AIP instead of the duplication? Is what we're trying to get away from, or? So
that's a larger question on is, can we legally construct an acreage report in which truly a producer can do it once and that count in both places, right? So one of the challenges we know is if you go to the county office, well, so an acreage report for crop insurance contains things like units, unit determination, or the contract price addendum, I think, settles at acreage reporting date. Well, can a county office do unit determination so that you have a full acreage report that you can work with? Well, that's going to be quite a challenge to ever go down that route. Conversely, FSA, the way they've structured it, is they need all shareholders on a farm. Well, if you only have one of the shareholders on a farm insured, are you going to be able to construct the full acreage report by getting all the other shareholders? Do you have rights to those other people? Well, probably not. So there are significant legal challenges at the legislative level to ever get to that point. It's certainly something that we keep on our radar, but I don't have a timetable on when that would truly be possible, where it's seamless one stop.
All right, I do have one more question that just came in. This is from Richard. Will the maps come with the 578 so we can do the map books from the FSA?
Can you repeat that again? There were some beeps on there.
Yep, absolutely. Will the maps come with the 578 so we can do the map book from the FSA?
So coming from our system or coming from FSA? if it's coming from our system and you're using our easy mapping schedule of insurance, you should have all of your MPCI crops mapped. Right now we don't have the non-MPCI crops mapping in our system. That is something that we are actively pursuing right now to see how we can get them in there. But all MPCI crops should be mapped, and then we would then print a 578 for the non-MPCI crops that then they could use to help certify, but we would not have a map for those. Coming from FSA, if we have the 578 and they provide maps, we should be able to key off of those if I remember right. And those I think should suffice.
And Richard is the one asking the question. Richard, I do have you off mute if you wanted to speak as well on behalf of this. However, your phone may still be on mute. Okay. All right, Richard. If you do, if you do have follow-up questions, please just let us know. All right. Okay. Again, we are out of questions. Is there any further questions that the group would like to ask?
Hey, while we're waiting on that, Monty sent me a screenshot of where to look at the report, and he pointed out you can see on the inbox. Can you see my PowerPoint right now?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, highlighted in the bottom in the lower part there is the ACRSI import listing. I forgot we had it as a quick access report for agents. So you can click on that and see what's in there and, process as you need to kind of thing. So, or in the MPCI policies report too. But I like where Monty had us put it here. So just go click on that and you're good to go, folks.
Perfect. And Jay, just to reiterate that'll be coming out this evening, correct?
Yes, this evening, yep.
Perfect. So not in there quite yet, but tomorrow morning it'll be there.
Yeah. And I have a feeling everybody's going to be clicking that puppy to see what they got.
Perfect. Well, I do not have any further questions. And so Jay or David, do you guys have anything that you would like to conclude with?
Again, I just want to say thanks to David. As you all can tell, this guy is just a wealth of knowledge on this. We're very lucky to have him come in and help clarify and hopefully get everybody, AIPs, agents, RMA, and FSA kind of on the same page to go forward because, as you can see, from our spring pilot of last year to where we are spring of this year, it's just huge. And yeah, it's going to be rough, but just work with us through these rough spots, guys, and in 2-3 years, I said it this morning, everyone's going to see how did we live without all this data that we'll have access to. We're just kind of tipping the iceberg here on what we can do, how we can integrate, and really provide a service to the farmer, which is really ideally, I think, what we all want to do. So, again, thank you all for joining us. Both of our conference calls, I think, have been tremendous, and I really appreciate David and Hope for helping on this.
Jay, I'm sorry to interrupt, I do have one more question if you guys are okay with that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, from Leon, I'm getting, if you have a spring policy and a fall policy, actually, hold on one second, I just want to make sure I started at the top. Okay, yep, if you have a spring policy and a fall policy, the FSA certifies wheat and grass in the fall. Do we certify the grass on each policy? The fallow is usually certified in the spring.
If it's on the fall policy, that's going to be, I think, good enough from an AIP side. We would send it to FSA at the fall on your fall policy, and then they would get it, and then they would have it based on how you are set up. If it's all in the same policy, they would possibly get your fall crops and grass when we send the spring updates, how we're sending them, because we just send everything. So that's and if there's no changes, FSA would probably just say, oh, no, that's good on those, we're good to go. So, and jump in on this one too, David.
I think what you said is correct. I don't think I have anything to add there.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jay. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Again, thank everybody for coming on the call today. And Jay and David, thank you so much for presenting and all of your wealth of information. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I will be sending out links to all of this information here shortly. Thank you. Have a great day.